OpenAI, the owners of ChatGPT, have just launched a version designed specifically for young people between the ages of 13 and 17. And I think this is a huge positive development in this space. But I'm sure by that look on your face, why do I think it's a positive development? That's the whole essence of this video. I'm going to be telling you what the unique features of this new ChatGPT version for teenagers is, why I think it's important, and I'll be citing some sad examples of why this is important, because sometimes it's these experiences of other people that would save us the risk of going through the same experience before we learn the lesson. So we'll learn from the experience of the sad experience of other parents and other people. And then I'll walk you through 3 things you can do, because versions and updates notwithstanding, there's no update that would be able to take the place of your role as a parent or as someone who supports young people. So 3 things you can do, and 3 practical, very effective things you can do to ensure that your young person is not just making the most of AI, but they are doing so in a safe way. Now, the question for you as a parent or as someone who works with young people should no longer be, how can my young person stop using AI, or is my young person using AI? The right question should be, how can I help my young person to use AI in a safe and a productive way? So let's start with the why this is a big deal. A survey conducted by Common Sense Media found that almost 3 out of every 4 young people surveyed were using AI for all sorts of things, homework, and some go as far as using it for very, very personal conversations, trying to use it to replace that human relationship. But the more worrying finding of that research is that 1/3 of the young people surveyed said they would rather turn to AI and some form of chatbots for very personal conversations than to a human being, a fellow human, their parents, teachers, or any other trusted adult. And I think that's a worrying finding. Because this AI, yes, they are quite good for information and all these other things we use them for. But when it comes to things that has to do with emotion, AI should not be what young people are turning to. So innocent your young person is lying on their bed with their phone, and what would typically come to a parent's mind is, well, they're just spending time chatting with friends, or scrolling, or doing something innocent. But it will shock you to know that that young person might be talking to ChatGPT about relationships. They might be talking to ChatGPT about very distressing situations around, body shaming, bullying, and even as far as conversations around the possibility of suicide, taking their own lives. And it's not just research that has shown this. Several stories that are making the rounds on the media show the gory consequence of some of these things. Now, I think it was last week, and that's still a very live development. A young 17 years old American teenager took the life of his mom and his 14 years old younger brother. And following investigation, they are beginning to realize that as part of his preparation for that act, he had chats with a chatbot. I think it was ChatGPT. The way these chatbots work, they are designed to validate what you bring to them. Let me show you a quick example. So I've just typed life sucks. Let's see what it says. Okay, here's the response. Yeah, sometimes it really does. You don't have to turn it into a positive lesson right now. If today has not been particularly rough, you can just tell me what happened. I'm listening. So that's what he said. You can see how it validated that statement that I make. So when this young person comes to the chatbot and says, something about how rough their day has been, or they start contemplating very bad things, What these chatbots are designed to do is to oftentimes validate what they bring or the questions they ask. As a human being who has emotional intelligence, who also understands the concept of the duty of care, if a young person comes to me and says to me that life sucks, I might ask questions around what exactly happened that makes you think life sucks. And if that conversation leads to a place where I think it is becoming threatening, common sense would demand that I maybe raise it up with their parents or report to the appropriate bodies that would help the young person, or even try in my capacity to help this young person out of. Because what happens when you find yourself in a difficult situation sometimes is you have this tunnel vision where all you see is the bad side of the things, the difficulties around the situation. And if you get someone that is able to just turn your attention to the broader pictures, the other things that happen in life, oftentimes you snap out of that state. And that itself might be life changing. But that's not what these chatbots are designed to do. They will take what you've told them and they'll just begin to build on it and help you and guide you on that path. And oftentimes it leads to very, very dangerous places. There's also the story of Adam. I think his name is Adam Rain. This young boy who, like every other young person or most other young people, started with normal chats, asking about homework, about the basic questions of life. And according to the police, the court filing by the parents, it soon, transformed into very personal and deep conversations with the young person asking questions around, suicide and all these other things. And before you know what was happening, ChatGPT, as usual, couldn't really save the young person. And I think that on 11th of April 2025, this particular young person took his life. There's also the story of Sewell. I think Sewell the third, that's his name. A 14-year-old boy in Florida who became heavily involved with a character, AI chatbot, and that's based on a fiction Game of Thrones character. And according to his mother's lawsuit again, the relationship became intensely emotional and included romantic and sexual conversations. The mom alleged that her son increasingly withdrew from real life while becoming attached to the chatbot. So, the boy in question now eventually died of suicide. His mother argued that chatbots contributed to his deterioration. The character AI and Google later reached a settlement in the lawsuit in 2026 without publicly disclosing the terms. So again, that's a case of a chatbot that appears like a substitute to humans for these vulnerable young people. But the sad fact is, it doesn't have this emotional intelligence, the judgment, the basic things that a typical human being would ensure they put in place to support and to help these young people. So some of the unique features of this version designed specifically for young people include things like, number one, it has more restriction and more strictness when it comes to the kind of advice it gives to young people in terms of conversations around things like suicide, depression, personal conversations. It's tighter in how it responds and supports young people. But something else I find interesting about the new version is when young people go with innocent questions and normal questions like what is a noun or the school related things, it's been designed such that it doesn't just throw them the answers, because what that does to them is it kills critical thinking, this analytical ability that young people need to thrive in life. If they just go to ChatGPT and get the answers, then that's part of their brain that needs to develop around problem solving naturally dies. So this new version has been designed such that when such questions come from young people, it will not just throw back the answer. It will walk them through steps that involves thinking. So for example, let me show you. If I quickly type in, let's see. If I quickly type in, what is a noun? So instead of coming back with something like a noun is a name of a person or, whatever noun is, it would say So, okay, let's work it out together. Look at these words: teacher, run, London, happy, bicycle. Which of those words do you think are names of a person, place, or thing? So the teenager might just come back with something like, I don't know, teacher, London, or whatever. And then the bot also says exactly what do those three words have in common. So you can see there's a process that forces the young person to think. I find that very, very interesting. Another function there is a parent can actually link their account to this version of ChatGPT such that you can bring in things like, time, put in time, how much time your young person can spend on the ChatGPT. You can also get notifications when your young person search certain key or triggering words. So words that you think might be concerning. You can set it such that once your young person searches such things, you get notification. But like I said, no matter the updates and the versions of ChatGPT and tech that we use, your responsibility as a parent would forever remain. And so quickly, let's look at three things you can do to further support your young person beyond the use of this updated version of ChatGPT. The first thing is you need to set some clear rules. One of those rules that I think you need to set is you need to help your young person understand that when it comes to information, searching for information, that's a thumbs up. But anything that has to do with personal conversation, you must set a rule with your young person that they must check with a human being. They must talk to someone. That someone might not necessarily be you, but they have to look for someone. And again, this leads into a broader conversation of you helping them understand how these tech devices work. Let them understand that this thing is designed, the algorithm is designed to take the information you give to them and provide what they think is the right answer. They do not have the judgment or the emotion to be able to help with emotion and things that require emotion and judgment. That's number one. Number two thing, teach them the AI triangle. And the AI triangle is just three key questions that your young person should always ask when they're using AI. Who knows? Who checked? And who decides? So this thing you're about to ask ChatGPT, or that you've just asked ChatGPT, who, that's what, which human knows about it? Which human checked the answer or the response you got from AI to be sure it's correct? And which human decides? Is it you, or are you working according to some instructions that you've gotten from ChatGPT or whatever AI you're using? Now, number three, this is very important because again, it links to every conversation you have with your young person. Talk to them the way you would when you're talking to them about school. So rather than asking your young person, what are you doing on ChatGPT, or what are you searching for on ChatGPT? Ask questions like, so what's the most bizarre or funny answer you've ever gotten from ChatGPT when you ask the question? You can also ask a question around what are the kind of questions your friends or your classmates are searching on for on ChatGPT these days. Or you could ask questions around, show me something interesting AI has helped you to learn this week. In fact, you can start this conversation from using your own experience. So you could say something like, wow, you wouldn't believe how intelligent this AI stuff is getting these days. I searched for this, that, and it gave me chapter and verse about it. And then that can lead to a conversation that can help you discover the level at which they're using AI. So the question you should be asking is not, should my young person be using AI? The question should be, how can I support them to use AI in a safe and a productive way? Thankfully, OpenAI has released a version that would help. Now, if you add that to the three things I've just said, you can also help your young person to make the most of AI. And I know you found this video very helpful because your comments are showing that you enjoyed this video. So please, I would encourage you to like, to share, and to subscribe to this channel, because every week, this is exactly what we do. Empower you to empower your young person to make the most of life, to go out there and take life by storm. I'd also like to hear from you. And the simple question is, how much of AI do you think your young person is currently using? Have you had any encounter or any experience with their use of AI? Let me know, and I'll do my best to reply to your chats and your messages. Thank you very much for now, and I'll see you again soon.